Worship service on behalf of all of our officers and our members. Our service this morning will be in conjunction with our 18th Congressional District Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who was instrumental in ensuring that June 19, 1865 will be a day remembered as a day of freedom for all Americans. We hope that you enjoy our worship service and our program, and pray that you are blessed as we have come to thank God for this first national holiday commemorating Juneteenth. Again, we welcome you, and we welcome you. Would you give this historic place sacred ground, and the shepherd and first lady of this church a rousing applause? Would you honor them? Would you stand First Lady Nicole, Pastor Lee. Before I begin, there will be many that you will hear on the program, but I do want to acknowledge the quintessential representative of the mayor of the city of Houston, who we are grateful to for his investment in Juneteenth and her great work. I'm going to say the Honorable Janice Wheeler. Would you please stand to be recognized? We are so excited about you and the work you did with the mayor and the community. And then I would ask the president, the guru, the man that had Houston dancing and understanding, Ramon Manning, the president of the Emancipation Conservative. We acknowledge the trustee, who is Lisa Imbo, and I know she represents all of the trustees. The incoming president of the State Black Legislative Caucus, he is ever present for good things. And he is a friend of the entire community. His leadership in the state legislature will give us comfort for new and important changes of liberty and justice. He is a fighter for freedom, Representative Ron Reynolds. The leader of Third Ward, Paul Davis, president of the Municipal Workers, Cynthia Cole, and any number of individuals. Ms. Junie Hebron is representing UNMC. Give them all a very big hand. Let me take a moment to resonate on the concept of sacred ground. You will hear this morning from distinguished member of the Biden administration. I'm so pleased that she was able to be here with us. My former colleague, United States Congress, a man that knows Texas and loves Texas, and of course, our famed council member who reaches to speak to the young men of this community, and a storyteller that I have come to love. You will hear from them as I move quickly this morning to emphasize this day. This is a day of passionate remembrance. This is a day of honor, Juneteenth. It is Happy Father's Day as well, and we honor our fathers. Our Father in heaven and our Father Jack Yates, who took the brutality of slavery without anger, began to move across this state. First, paying honor to God, building this church in 1866. Just a little education, this was the neighborhood of freed slaves. Where the skyscrapers are, these were our homes. These were where our great-grands were, Dr. Doris Ellis. This is what we viewed as sacred ground. Emancipation Park, wise that he was, didn't want us disturbed as we were in the Jubilee of every year celebrating emancipation. So, as I did this for 10 years in the United States Congress and drew some unique partners, Senator Corden, Senator Markey, Senator Booker, and a diverse group of members in the United States House. The idea was this national recognition of Juneteenth create a channel for teaching and learning. We're not doing this in anger. We want the nation to understand the truth. Slavery was brutal. It was long. It was lasting. It was never ending for those who were born. They lived. They worked. They buried. They died.
preceded Reconstruction that did not last. The horrors of Jim Crow and the raids of the Ku Klux Klan, it looked like it went on into the 20th century. The burning of Tulsa and the Wall Street Massacre, the misinformation, and the national lack of a footprint. We're so happy to see all of you here because what we wanted is, no matter what your background, however you came in Pilgrim's Pride, across the border, in an airplane, whether you were our indigenous brothers and sisters or as slaves unwilling, that this is your country too. We too are America. So I wanted Juneteenth to launch the discussions and awareness of the Black experience in America. Less than a person when the Constitution was written. Not able to vote, not able to own property because we were property. That is what this occasion is all about. When you leave, I hope you'll be uplifted, but I hope you'll touch the pews as you walk on the carpet, that you will recognize this is sacred ground. Amen. You go throughout the South, slaves are in unmarked, unnoticed graves. They fell and died and buried where they were. There were no ceremonies in some of the times unless the slaves could be allowed to come together and to give honor to someone who had died. And so from officially 1619, even though slaves were here in the 1400s and 1500s, we were held in bondage, one of America's original sins. When the proclamation came in 1863, the South refused to give the information to the slaves here, Texas in particular, and it lasted for a very long time afterwards because the idea was to ensure that slaves would continue to be slaves. And so I close my remarks on this occasion just to give you a sense of the reality of slavery. The good news that America was owning up to this in the 1930s, otherwise we would have lost it. The narratives of real people who had been slaves. So listen to Mother Ann Clark. She was made a slave by a Yankee, brought to Louisiana. She indicated, you know the white folks hated to give us up. The worst thing in the world. She said, I plowed, I hoed, I split rails, I done the hardest work every man could do. They whop us with a bullwhip. We got up at 3, and then at 4, and we done hitched the mules and went to the fields. Worked all day, pulling fodder and chopping cotton. We made America rich. The master said, I want you to lead in getting the cotton today. And then they would say, if you don't lead, I'm going to put you in chains and put you in the stocks. And then he whopped me again if he didn't know, if I didn't know what he was talking about. She was alive in 112 years in the 1930s. Then just listen to this young man, Frank Bell, a slave of Johnson Bell, who ran a saloon in New Orleans. When the war was over, he won't free. Says I'm valuable to him in his trade. He wouldn't free him. You're supposed to be free, but I'll pay you $1 a week. And if you run, I'll kill you. So he makes me do like before the war, but give me about $1 a month instead of a week. He says, I cost more, I'm worth more, he's not going to let me go. Even when General Greenwood gave that order, there were those who could not be free. When he gave that order, he told them, well, you are good to stay here and be an employee with an employer. And as I close, I'll simply say to you, these slaves were not educated. They didn't have any degree. I venture to say they hadn't heard of the word employee in their life. They got their belongings and got out of there. They were free. They were determined to be free. I'm very grateful to this church for letting us tell the story that they were free. Might I just read an excerpt now from Senator John Cornyn, dated June 19, 2022. On this day, 157 years ago, General Gordon Granger and his soldiers arrived in Galveston to deliver the news to Texas that the Civil War had ended and slaves were to be free forever. June 19, 1865 was a day that brought great news and joy to slaves in Texas. And for the past century and a half, the historic day has been known and celebrated. As this monumental news reverberated across Texas, families throughout the state celebrated their newfound freedom. Senator Cornyn and myself introduced legislation to create the Emancipation Trail that would bring about the recognition of how the slaves left Galveston. Last year, Houston Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and I passed a bill establishing Juneteenth as America's newest federal holiday. We had the honor of standing alongside of some of the biggest champions of this effort, including our dear friend from Fort Worth, the grandmother of Juneteenth, Miss Opal Lee, as we signed it. What a great day of celebration. And he goes on to say, I am happy to join you as you celebrate Juneteenth, and I pledge to continue to work each and every day to ensure that all Texans live free lives for a generation to come. I join him in that commitment. May God bless the grand state of Texas, and together we say, may God bless the United States of America. This is sacred ground. May I now have to leave the podium the story of Juneteenth by the greatest storyteller that I've met of this wonderful story that Juneteenth is bringing about, Naomi Carrier.
As I stand on this sacred ground, remembering that my grandfather and my father were A&E ministers, and I was baptized in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And from the age of 14 through college, I supported myself as a church musician. Let's give this wonderful choir a praise. And so let me be brief in this story about Juneteenth. The announcement was not late. It was delayed in order to produce 2.5 more years of cotton and sugar. Someone said to me, what is emancipation? Emancipation means the fight for freedom from slavery. 1865 in Texas was still the arena of the Civil War. The Confederacy continued, and even after Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee surrendered, the final battle was fought in Texas at Palmetto Ranch on May 13, 1865, by 16,000 United States colored troops. And it was the colored troops who came with General Granger to safeguard our freedom. Thousands of freed men, women, and children were murdered. And by the time the Freedmen's Bureau arrived in September, free people were being re-enslaved by sharecropping and convictism. It was black codes, Jim Crow, lynching, sharecropping, and convictism that perpetuated slavery for 300,000 African peoples in Texas. And although many left and fled to the north well into the 20th century, those of us who were left, we triumphed over tragedy, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that we had intelligence, creativity, resilience, tough resolve, and faith. Oh, how we exhibited faith and courage. We sang freedom beyond Martin Luther King's dream. And we question the state's rights to have ever owned us. We declare our right to reparations for the millions of babies and into Galveston for transportation into the world's ports. We seek repair for the babies sold away from their. Thank our Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee for taking up the 1989 mantle of Congressman John Conyers in this H.E.R. 40 initiative. It is essential. I just want to say to you that as a part of my role to honor the Sugarland 95 that were unearthed in 2018, I wrote 25 stories to personalize their remains. This is an excerpt for one of them. Mama, y'all settle down there and enjoy the ride. Mr. Mo, I was made grateful that you's gonna try to get us to go and see our father. Seems like he's been gone forever, and there still ain't no idea when he's coming back. And you children sit down and just be patient. Kid one. Wonder what Papa gonna look like when we see him. Kid two. I don't care what he looks like. He been gone for 2 years. I just want to see him. Happy Father's Day. Okay.
A year ago, this time we were in the White House. We couldn't believe it. We literally could not believe it. As McElroy, we thought we had a spiritual dream. The grandmother was there, Opal Lee, and throngs to see the signing of the Juneteenth, national federal holiday. And so I'm delighted the Biden administration is represented today by one of their stars and new appointees, United States Health and Human Services Regional Director, Seaman, an attorney, a proponent of access to health care for all, doing a stupendous job representing Health and Human Services and fighting for everyone in Texas to get health care. We're delighted to have her. Please welcome her now.
Good morning and happy Father's Day to everyone. I wanted to thank you so much for inviting me at this historical church, Sacred Grounds, that is in Freedmanstown since 1866 and has so much significance. Thank you, Pastor McElroy. Thank you, First Lady McElroy. It's an honor being here. Juneteenth became a national federal holiday last year when Congress passed it into law, was unanimously approved by the Senate, and was signed by the President. And this is thanks to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee for her tenacity over 12 years when she introduced the bill. Thank you so much. But Juneteenth also helps us remember that moving forward toward justice and equity requires a continued, sustained commitment. Through Juneteenth is commemorated as marking the end of slavery in the United States, the struggle for equity for African Americans and other Black Americans continues. The emancipation of African Americans from slavery was followed by almost a century of segregation, dictated by law in which African Americans were subject to a host of discriminatory policies in voting, housing, education, employment, medical care, and other areas. Even after the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Juneteenth are important for highlighting the historical circumstances and contemporary factors that shape the current constraints and opportunities experienced by African Americans. Celebrating these events also provides an opportunity to highlight many contributions of African Americans in the face of historical, structural, and institutional racism. As we reflect on how we can learn from the history of Juneteenth, the Department of Health and Human Services and the entire Biden administration are working to incorporate race equity approach into our work each and every day. In this administration and at HHS, we are tackling health disparities and keeping equity at the core of everything we do. Because the right of a healthy life is still out of reach for many Black Americans, which means improving health outcomes for Black Americans are a priority. We have worked to alleviate the disproportionate burden of the pandemic on Black Americans by investing billions in COVID-19 vaccination and testing, support for healthcare workers, and targeted outreach and education initiatives. We have also taken unprecedented action to improve Black maternal health by implementing new policies and funding to ensure safer pregnancies and postpartum services for new parents and their babies. In addition, we have made healthcare more affordable and accessible for Black families across the nation. During the 2021 special enrollment period, more than 2.8 million Americans signed for the new health insurance. And among those who reported their race, 50% of the enrollees were Black, up from 9% in 2009. And thanks to the administration's American Rescue Plan, many saw their health insurance premiums lowered or eliminated during the 2022 open enrollment, where 4 out of 5 consumers could find a plan for less than $10. We are so proud to have many Black leaders who are making history in their roles in the administration. And at HHS, we have Administrator Chiquita Booth-Fisher at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Assistant Secretary Dr. Miriam Delton-Brickman at Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, Assistant Secretary Cheryl Campbell at the Office of Administration, and Director Marvin Figueroa at the Office of Intergovernmental and External Affairs, my boss. Our work is far from done. From reducing the cost of healthcare to strengthening behavioral health services and everything in between. This administration and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services will continue to advance the health and well-being of all Americans, including Black Americans. It is such an honor to be here, looking forward to working with all of you in the community to make this dream a reality. Thanks for having me and have a good day.
University comes, Pastor, please forgive me, I want to acknowledge Councilmember Jackson, all the way from Northeast. There are a lot of connections. If I might, I am happy to have my two children here, Erica, Sheila Carter, Jason Cornelius Bennett Lee. I'm your mom. Stand up, Jason, please. And now the incomparable Texas Southern University debate team in the name of Dr. Thomas Freeman and
I know why the caged birds sing.
Why? The caged birds sing with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for.
And this tune is heard on the distant hill, where the caged bird sings
Of freedom.
My mind is stayed on freedom, and I'm not gonna let nobody turn me round.
The Texas Southern University debate team is happy to make this Reader's Theater presentation, scripted exclusively for this Juneteenth occasion by head coach Dr. Gloria Batiste Roberts, entitled "And Freedom Did Come," based on selected slave narratives and excerpts from other classic literature, including readings of Naomi Carey.
Battered and beaten by the bludgeoning of seas, we landed on these shores, only to learn that we will be excluded from those who could sing with pride.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing.
But there was no freedom for us, bound by the shackles of slavery, though we cried day and night.
Oh freedom, oh freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
No more moaning, no more mourning, no more mourning over me.
No more weeping, no more weeping over me.
They'll be singing, they'll be singing, they'll be singing over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. What was life like during the days of slavery? One report from the diary of a Texas slave girl gives us a bird's
I entered my 15th year, a sad story in the life of a slave girl. My master had begun to whisper foul words in my ear. He peopled my mind with unclean images, such as only a vile monster could think of. He told me that I was his property, that I must be subjected to his will at all times and in all things. My soul revolted against this tyranny. But where could I go? What could I do? I confided in my grandmother and told her about my ordeals, but all she could do was hold me tight and say, "Poor child, oh, poor child."
What was slavery like during the days of slavery in Texas? Listen to the stories of these Texas slaves.
Now, my name is Richard Carruthers. Our slaves had a praying ground down in the hollows. Sometimes we come out of the field 11, 12 o'clock at night, scorching, burning. And we wanted to ask the good Lord to have mercy on us. So we took a grease of oil and put it in a small bottle and made a lamp. We took a pine torch too and went down to the hollows to pray. Oh, some got so joyous that they started to holler loud and we had to stop up their mouths. I saw those folks so full of the Lord and happy, they almost dropped unconscious.
My name is Sarah. Mrs. could have helped me, but she didn't. She hated me just because of the tension Master gave me. She was incapable of feeling for the condition of shame and misery in which her unfortunate helpless slave was placed.
We were treated like animals.
We were not allowed to own property.
We were forbidden by law to read or write.
We lived in one-room floors with dirt shacks.
Some of us had no shoes.
Slavery was bad in Texas.
What heartache and pain that had to be endured is reflected in the confession of this slave.
Great. Auction day. So I thought. Boy, was I wrong. Well, I found out that auction day could be good or bad. It could be sold to a horrible master or a nice one. They put 3 colors on your arm, because there were 3 types of slavery. You see, there was blood slave, sex slave, and work slave. Well, I had only been 2 kinds. Blood slave and work slave.
But I have been a sex slave. Hear my story, my past. I put my head down, letting my hair fall over my face, just wishing this would end. The guard grabbed my chin and forced me to look into the crowd.
Now she has held 7 past masters. With these qualifications, shall we start the bidding off at 500? Do I hear 600?
800.
Do I hear 1,000?
1,000.
1,000. Going once, going twice. Sold to His Majesty H. Tricky of Richmond, Texas.
And I remember those dreadful auction days. I was beat one last time by my master, then pushed onto the stage with tears in my eyes. I could hear people laughing and whispering. Then the bidding got up to $2,000. Then I was pushed back to my old masters, and they pushed me in a room with 5 men with evil grins on their faces. And next I know, I was out.
Me, the defining moment of my life came the day my family was scattered to the winds without even the privilege of saying goodbye to one another. I was sold to a William Mayday of Rosenberg, Texas for $700. There I learned the realities of slavery. For instance, my master said to me that I must always stand to the side, take off my hat, say yes sir, no sir when I met a white man, or else suffer the whipping. And there was no let up in our work. They worked us 16 hours a day and explained at the outset that if we defied his authority, his duty would be to kill us. Because killing a slave was the same thing as killing a hog.
I'm sure some endured this dehumanization brought by their life in slavery, but not all. Many could not take it, and so revolted.
Many could not take it, and so brought their own lives to an end. They said Negroes won't commit suicide. That ain't so.
No, that ain't so. Or Adeline hung herself on a blackjack tree on the other side of the pool that was used for ducks and stock. Or she hung herself to keep from getting a whipping. Ahead of her time, she told her mama she would rather kill herself than let them whip her. And she did.
Yes, it was hard on many of us, but there were a few fun times, like
Hog killing time.
When the first cold-blooded came, fattened pigs were slain, and we had provisions for the whole year.
those times things were hard on us, but not always.
Some masters allowed us to have our own church and to sing our own songs. And then we sing until the Holy Ghost came upon us and we started to jump about and speak in tongues.
I learned this and sang it everywhere I went.
Steal away to Jesus. And I learned this song and sang it everywhere I went.
Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, and tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
And I learned this song and sang it everywhere I went. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
And and learned this song and sang it everywhere I went.
Sweet Lord, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home.
And war did come, bringing with it horrible encounters.
We hold dear in our memory of those who fought for freedom, but never realized it in their own lives.
For who the news of freedom arrived too late.
And we pledged to them to live in such a way that all those who gave the last full measures of their devotion will not have died in vain. So help us, God.